How do you explain to a cop that silence isn't defiance? That when a deaf boy doesn't raise his hands, it's not rebellion, it's confusion. They slammed 17-year-old Ethan Carter to the concrete outside a convenience store. His hearing aids shattered. His wrists snapped under the weight of standard procedure. His sister Maya screamed in sign language no one bothered to understand. And the worst part? The police laughed about it later, on Bodycam. But what they didn't know was that one of their own had been recording more than they ever meant to reveal. Before this was over, those laughs would echo through every newsroom in America, and Maya Carter would turn her brother's silence into the loudest cry for justice this town had ever heard. This story isn't just about a boy who couldn't hear, it's about a system that refused to listen. Stay till the end, because what happens when the Bodycam audio leaks will shock you. Drop where you're watching from, and tell me, if your voice was taken, who would fight for you? Now, let's go back to where it all began. To the afternoon where a simple stop for snacks became a war between silence and power. Saturday sunlight glazed over Southfield Avenue, the kind of slow, golden afternoon when nobody expects tragedy. Ethan Carter sat by the passenger window, sketching the streetlights blurring past, his pencil moving in rhythm with the beat pulsing faintly from his sister's car speakers. He couldn't hear the music, but he could feel it, the bass trembling through his seat, syncing with the hum of his pulse. Maya glanced at him, one hand on the wheel, the other drumming to the beat. "Snacks, then home, okay?" she said, knowing he'd read her lips. Ethan nodded, flashing that soft smile that still made her think of their childhood, before silence, before loss, before everything became a fight to be understood. They pulled into Corner Mart, the same spot they always stopped after school. The lot was mostly empty, a white sedan by the pump, two old men talking by the ice machine. Nothing about this place screamed danger. Inside, Maya grabbed chips and sodas while Ethan lingered by the candy aisle, tracing his finger along the colorful wrappers. He turned, gesturing to her, "One." And she rolled her eyes playfully. "Fine, but just one." That's when the air shifted. Outside, two police cruisers screeched into the lot, tires biting asphalt. The clerk's head snapped up. A faint metallic click echoed as the door sensor chimed. Ethan froze. He saw the clerk's lips move, a word he couldn't read. Alarm, maybe. He saw her hand slip under the counter. His stomach tightened. Maya noticed the change in his posture, the way he suddenly tensed. "What's wrong?" she signed. He pointed to the door. Red and blue lights danced across the glass. Within seconds, officers burst in, Officer Reed leading, hand already hovering near his weapon. "Hands up," he shouted. The sound thundered through the store, but to Ethan it was nothing more than vibration and motion, lips moving fast, unreadable in panic. He froze. He didn't understand. "Hands." Reed barked again, louder this time. Maya turned, confused, saw Reed's hand gripping his gun. "He's deaf," she screamed, both aloud and in sign, motioning wildly toward her brother. Reed advanced, veins in his neck tightening. "Don't move," he barked, closing the distance. Ethan instinctively took a small step back. The wrong move in a world that never gives black boys the benefit of doubt. Reed lunged. In one brutal motion, he slammed Ethan to the floor, knee grinding into his back. A scream tore from Maya's throat. The soda cans clattered, fizzing under fluorescent light. "Stop. He can't hear you," she cried. "He's deaf." Ethan's sketchbook spilled open, graphite sketches fluttering across the floor, hands, faces, waves, the language he'd built for himself. Reed grabbed his wrist, twisting hard. A sickening snap. Ethan's scream was silent, but it filled the room like thunder. Another officer, Jensen, hesitated. "Sir, maybe?" "Stay back," Reed snapped, yanking out his taser. The crackle lit the aisle in electric blue. He fired. Ethan's body convulsed, limbs jerking violently. Maya rushed forward, but Jensen blocked her. "Ma'am, please." "Please what?" "Watch him die," she shouted, voice cracking. Reed holstered his taser, panting. "Suspect subdued." "Suspect?" Maya spat. "He's a kid." The clerk finally screamed. It was a false alarm. It went off by mistake. But it was too late. Ethan lay trembling, face pressed to the floor, his hearing aids scattered near the soda spill, one crushed under Reed's boot. He couldn't hear the chaos, only felt vibrations through the tile, a storm of movement above him. Maya fell to her knees, cradling his face. "Ethan, it's okay, I'm here." He blinked at her through tears, confused, signing one shaky word. "Why?" Reed straightened, chest heaving. "EMS en route," he said, eyes cold. Jensen muttered, "This was excessive, sir." "You saw him reach for something," Reed said sharply. "We followed protocol." But they both knew Ethan hadn't reached for anything, only the battery pack for his hearing aid, small and silver, lying inches away, slick with spilled soda. When the ambulance arrived, Reed's report was already forming. Non-compliant suspect. Possible weapon. Used necessary force. Maya tried to follow them, but an officer blocked her. "Ma'am, step back." "He's 17, she yelled, tears streaking her face. "He can't hear you." The paramedic shot her a sympathetic glance before closing the doors. As the sirens faded, Reed looked at Jensen. "You saw him move, right?" Jensen hesitated. "I saw confusion." Reed's jaw tightened. "Good enough. Write it clean." Maya stood there, trembling, staring at the blood smudge on the linoleum, her brother's sketchbook still lying open. A single drawing stared back at her, a hand reaching toward another, fingers almost touching but not quite. The air smelled like copper and static. A customer's phone was still recording. And somewhere deep in Maya's chest, grief hardened into something else entirely, fury. She whispered through her tears, "You'll hear him now. All of you." But this was only the beginning. Because by the time the police report hit the news, Ethan wasn't a victim anymore. He was a suspect. Non-compliant teen. Another black boy who didn't follow orders. And when Maya saw the first headline twist the story, she knew exactly what she had to do. Find the truth. Expose the lie. And make the world hear what silence couldn't say. But first, she had to get the footage. The morning after the arrest, the Carter's house felt like a hospital room, quiet, sterile, and haunted by beeping machines that no longer worked. Ethan sat on the couch with his right arm in a cast, his left hand trembling as he traced invisible words on the fabric. The swelling around his eye had turned purple overnight. His hearing aids lay shattered in a small evidence bag on the kitchen counter. Maya stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, I filed the complaint yesterday," she said, her voice tight. "I need the body cam footage from the officers involved." The line crackled. "Ma'am, those recordings are under review. You'll need to file a formal request through our legal office." "I already did." "Then you'll have to wait for the process." "How long?" she asked. Silence. "Then, up to 90 days. 90 days. She looked at Ethan, whose wrist was encased in white plaster because standard procedure didn't include patience or understanding. 90 days might as well have been a lifetime. The local news had already replayed the incident 15 times. Cropped, edited, narrated with captions like, "Possible robbery suspect resisted arrest." Maya muted the TV. Her brother didn't need to see the world calling him something he wasn't. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sound of sirens outside still made her chest tighten. She sat at her desk, scrolling through the city's online database, searching for public incident reports. Her laptop light flickered against the posters on her wall, civil rights marches, SL signs for strength and truth. She typed, "Corner Mart 911 call, May 8th. The result came up blank. That was impossible. Every 911 call logged automatically. She tried again with the address. Still nothing. Maya leaned back, heart pounding. They scrubbed it. Downstairs, Ethan tossed restlessly on the couch. She walked over, brushing his hair back gently. He blinked awake, confused. His lips formed a question. But she didn't answer. She just signed, "I'll fix it." The next morning, Maya walked into the police department with a backpack full of paperwork and anger disguised as composure. The reception desk buzzed with chatter until the clerk looked up at her. "Records division?" she asked. "Down the hall, third door left." the woman said, her tone flat. In the records office, Officer Reed stood leaning against the counter, laughing with two colleagues. His uniform was spotless, his face calm, like the man hadn't destroyed a teenager's life 2 nights ago. Maya's throat went dry. "I'm here to request the footage from the corner mart arrest." Reed's smile faltered. "You must be Carter." She met his eyes. "You broke my brother's wrist." He shrugged. "He resisted." "He didn't hear you." Reed leaned in, voice dropping low. "Ma'am, I don't make excuses for criminals." "Then you shouldn't make any for yourself." Before she could say more, another officer entered, a younger man with uncertain eyes. "Jensen." He glanced between them, tension visible. "Reed, Chief's asking for you." Reed muttered something under his breath and left, leaving Maya in the heavy silence of the room. Jensen hesitated, then said quietly, "You shouldn't be here alone." "I'm not scared of him," Maya replied. He looked at her for a long second. "You should be scared of what happens to files that embarrass people like him." Something in his tone froze her. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, just handed her a slip. "Your formal request number. Keep this safe." Then lower, "Come back in a few days. But when it's quiet." That night, Maya replayed every detail. The hesitation, the warning, the look in Jensen's eyes that said more than he was allowed to speak. When she checked the public database again, the entry for Corner Mart incident had vanished entirely, deleted from the city's system. The silence wasn't accidental anymore. It was engineered. She made her move. Using her student ID from the university media lab, Maya accessed the school's public safety network, one that occasionally synced to nearby traffic and security feeds. At 1:23 a.m., she found it, footage from a street camera 2 blocks from the corner mart. The timestamp matched. She clicked play. The image was grainy but clear enough. Ethan standing by the glass door, holding something small and metallic. 2 police cars pull up fast, doors slam, flashlights blind him. Seconds later, Reed rushes forward, tackles him hard. Maya pressed pause, zoomed in. The metallic object caught the light. Not a weapon. A battery pack. Her heart pounded. She exported the clip, labeled it truth_1. She uploaded it to a flash drive, tucked it in her jacket pocket, and stared out the window at the sleeping city. Her phone buzzed. A known number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A male voice. "You don't know me." "Name's Jensen." Her pulse spiked. "The officer from records?" "I can't talk long," he said. "You didn't hear this from me, but they're editing the Bodycam files. Reed's report doesn't match what really happened." Maya gripped the phone. "How do you know?" "I'm the one assigned to log them," he whispered. "They made me flag the audio as corrupted." "It's not. The mics caught everything." "What do you mean, everything?" "The laughing. The comments." His voice cracked slightly. "They called him Sign Language Boy. You need to get that audio before it disappears." "Where is it?" "Evidence server. Basement." "But you didn't hear that from me." The line went dead. Maya's chest heaved. The world outside her window looked different now, like every shadow was hiding a secret. The next day, she tried returning to the station, but the receptionist said Reed had filed a restraining notice. "You're interfering with an active investigation," the woman said coldly. "What investigation? You're the ones who assaulted a kid." "Ma'am, please leave before we have to escort you out." Maya clenched her fists. The rage burned under her skin like fire that wouldn't cool. That night she didn't cry. She planned. She mapped the station's layout she'd memorized earlier. She marked the basement access through the parking lot. She printed her student press badge, the one that still looked official. If they wanted silence, she'd make noise. At 11:47 p.m., she parked behind the municipal building, hoodie up, flash drive tucked in her sleeve. Her pulse beat so loud she could feel it in her teeth. The hallway lights buzzed faintly as she slipped through the side entrance Jensen had mentioned. The air smelled of bleach and paper. Every footstep echoed like thunder. In the basement, rows of locked cabinets gleamed under fluorescent light. One door labeled Evidence Server blinked red. Password required. She crouched, fingers trembling, pulling a small paper from her pocket, Jensen's handwritten code. She typed it. The red light turned green. Inside, folders lined the shelves like rows of secrets. Case _4819 _. She plugged in her flash drive, copied everything. Each file loaded slower than the last. Bodycam clips, dispatch logs, one labeled audio _original. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, growing closer. Maya froze. The screen still at 83%. She turned off the monitor light and ducked behind a cabinet. A beam of flashlight swept the room. Reed's voice. Who the hell's down here? She held her breath. The flash drive light blinked once, then stopped. 100%. Reed walked closer, muttering. Chief wants these files sealed tonight. Can't risk leaks. Maya pressed herself against the metal shelf, hand over her mouth. Reed's boots stopped inches from her hiding spot. He pulled a keyring from his pocket, locked the server, and turned away. No one's hearing that audio, he muttered. Not ever. When the door finally closed, Maya counted to 60 before moving. She snatched the drive, heart hammering, and slipped out the back door into the cold night air. Outside, she leaned against the wall, shaking. The city around her hummed like nothing had changed, but everything had. She looked down at the flash drive glowing faintly in her hand. Inside it was proof. Proof of every lie. Every word. Every laugh. But what she didn't know yet was that she wasn't the only one watching that night. Because as she drove away, a police cruiser pulled out 2 blocks behind her, headlights off, trailing in silence. And this time, silence was no longer safe. The flash drive sat on Maya's palm, warm from her skin, humming with the weight of what it carried. It wasn't just data, it was the beating heart of truth. And in that truth was every scream the world never heard from her brother. She waited until Ethan fell asleep on the couch before she plugged it in. The living room light pooled softly over his face, his broken wrist resting against his chest like something sacred. The sight fueled her determination. She pressed play. The first clip was from Reed's Bodycam. The camera jolted and shook as he barked orders inside the convenience store. Hands up. The words boomed through the speakers, but to Ethan, they had been just air moving in silence. Then came the noise Maya would never forget, the dull impact of a body hitting the floor, the crunch of bone under weight, her own voice screaming, "He's deaf. He can't hear you." And over it all laughter. Men laughing. Officers laughing. One voice, sharp and unmistakable, said, "Sign language boy thinks he's special." Another answered, "Let's teach him to listen." Her stomach twisted. Her hand flew to her mouth, but the sound that escaped wasn't a sob. It was something deeper, like a wound gasping for air. She kept watching, forcing herself to see every second of cruelty that had broken her brother's body. The next file was labeled audio _original. It began with static, then the unmistakable sound of men joking in the aftermath. "Get a load of the family screaming outside," someone said. "They always scream." Reed's voice followed, cool and unbothered. "Don't worry, we'll write it clean. No one will hear the difference." Maya leaned back in her chair, dizzy. She pressed her palms into her eyes until colors danced behind them. Then she whispered to herself, "They're going to hear you now, Ethan." By dawn, she had edited everything. She synced the Bodycam video to the store's security footage she'd recovered, layered the timestamps, and added captions for every slur, every command, every moment that proved Ethan had done nothing wrong. When she was done, she sat for a moment in the dim light of the kitchen, the only sound the faint hum of the refrigerator. She uploaded the file. Her post was simple. He didn't ignore orders. He never heard them. #DeafNotDefiant #here Ethan. It took 5 minutes for the first notifications to appear. Then they came faster. 10 views. 100. Then 1,000. Within an hour, her phone pulsed so much it felt alive in her hand. People shared it. Journalists wrote about it. Deaf creators stitched it with tears in their eyes, signing words of love and rage. Parents wrote about children who'd faced the same suspicion for moving too slowly or looking defiant. The internet had found them. Ethan stirred awake. He saw the light from her laptop and shuffled toward her. She turned the screen so he could see the comments scrolling faster than she could read them. He frowned, confused. She signed slowly, "They know. The world knows." He signed back, "They heard?" She nodded, fighting tears. Finally, they heard. By noon, local news anchors were talking about it. The police department issued a statement calling the incident an unfortunate misunderstanding. The union said standard procedure was followed. But before the press release could spin, the audio surfaced everywhere, untouched and undeniable. That laughter became their downfall. The story consumed the city. Crowds gathered outside the precinct. Reporters camped outside City Hall. Across the street from the Carters' small brick house, people held handmade signs that said, "Listen with your eyes," and "Silence is not resistance." The deaf community showed up in force, teaching strangers how to sign justice with their hands raised high. For the first time since the night of the arrest, Ethan smiled. He watched from the window as children practiced signing with their parents. His broken wrist rested against the glass, trembling, but his eyes were bright. Maya thought the worst was over. She didn't yet understand that when truth threatens power, power strikes back. The first sign came quietly. A black SUV drove slowly past the house 3 times that afternoon. Then an email arrived from an anonymous address. "Return what you stole before we come for it." She tried to laugh it off until another message followed. Her own photo, grainy and dark, taken from across the street the night she'd broken into the records room. The subject line read, "We see you." Her phone rang. The voice on the other end trembled. "This is Jensen. You need to listen carefully," he said. She almost dropped the phone. "What's happening?" "They know I told you. They're calling it a breach. Reed is furious. He's trying to push through a warrant to seize everything from your house. They're saying you stole police property." Maya's breath hitched. "How long do I have?" "Not long. Maybe hours. I'm sending you a link. Upload everything to it. Once it's online, they can't erase it." "Jensen, what about you?" The line went quiet. "Just promise you'll finish this," he said. "Someone has to." She hung up shaking but didn't hesitate. She copied the footage to multiple drives, uploaded it to a secure cloud server, and sent copies to her lawyer and 3 major news outlets. Then she taped one drive under the kitchen drawer and hid another under Ethan's mattress. At dusk, a crowd of supporters filled the street. The air buzzed with chants and the rhythmic hum of drums that Ethan could feel through the floor. Reporters shouted questions from the sidewalk. Maya stepped outside to face them, a small figure wrapped in conviction. "What do you want from Officer Reed?" one reporter asked. Her voice didn't waver. "I want him to look my brother in the eyes and say the word, sorry. I want him to admit that he didn't see a teenager, he saw a threat." The clip went viral within minutes. Even the mayor called for an investigation. But the police union responded with the oldest trick in the book: discredit the victim. Anonymous blogs surfaced claiming Ethan had a history of school aggression. Others twisted Maya's college activism into anti-police sentiment. By evening, their phone numbers were leaked. Strangers called just to breathe into the receiver. That night, the attorney, Alana Rhodes, called from Washington. "Stay calm, Maya. Don't open your door for anyone. They're escalating." Maya looked out the window and saw another car idling under the streetlight. "I'm not scared," she said softly. "They're the ones who should be scared." Just before midnight, headlights rolled up the block in pairs. No sirens. No lights. Just the slow, heavy arrival of authority. A man in a gray suit climbed the steps and held up a document. "Search warrant. We're authorized to collect all devices related to the unlawful acquisition of police evidence." Maya stood in the doorway with Ethan behind her. "You can read it out loud," she said, pointing to the dozens of live streams already rolling. The man's voice trembled slightly as he read the words, realizing every syllable was being recorded by hundreds of strangers. Alana's voice came through on speakerphone. "Ask for the judge's signature. Ask who authorized it. Stall." Maya did. The man fumbled. The crowd outside began to chant softly. "Listen. Listen. Listen." The chant grew louder until it shook the air. Deaf protesters joined in, signing the word instead of saying it, their hands moving like a wave across the crowd. Ethan watched from behind the glass, his fingers pressed against it. He signed one word to his sister, safe? She turned slightly, answering with the same steady motion she had used since he was a child. I've got you. The officer tried to push past her, but before he could, another sound cut through the chaos, sirens. Real ones this time. Blue windbreakers emerged from the darkness, the letters DOJ glowing under the streetlights. Federal agents stepped forward with papers in hand. Federal order, one woman said firmly. All local evidence must be surrendered to the Civil Rights Division. No seizures. No destruction. The crowd erupted in cheers. Maya's knees buckled with relief. The agent gave her a brief nod. We'll need your copies for verification, she said. But you keep control of the originals. From this point forward, they answer to us. For a brief, fragile moment, the night felt safe again. But then the sound of engines roared from the far end of the street. Pickups, flags waving, men shouting slurs from open windows. Bottles crashed. The air thickened with smoke and fear. The federal agents moved to form a line, shouting for people to stay back. The chants fractured into screams. Maya grabbed Ethan's good hand. We're going inside, she said. The crowd surged around them as headlights swept across the houses. Then, in the distance, a loud crash. Glass shattered somewhere close. Power lines sparked and flickered. The entire street went dark. Maya reached for Ethan in the darkness. It's okay, I've got you, she whispered, but even she could hear the tremor in her voice. Outside, boots pounded on the porch. The door frame rattled. A shadow filled the window, lit by the faint red of distant taillights. Broad shoulders. Familiar stance. The voice she'd heard in nightmares. Step away from the boy, Officer Reed said quietly. This time, nobody's filming. Maya's heart stopped, her fingers tightening around Ethan's. The truth had reached the world. But now, in the dark, the man who feared that truth stood just a breath away. The blackout swallowed everything. No streetlights. No hum of distant traffic. Just the quiet buzz of fear in Maya's chest. Her fingers found Ethan's hand in the dark. She could feel him trembling. His breathing came fast, shallow, confused. Stay behind me, she whispered, though she knew he couldn't hear her voice. She signed it against his wrist. Behind me, stay close, tracing the shapes of safety on his skin. The front door creaked open. Rain drizzled through the broken frame. A heavy step crossed the threshold. And then another. Officer Reed's silhouette filled the entryway, his badge glinting faintly in the lightning that flashed outside. His voice, once sharp with authority, now came low, edged with anger and exhaustion. You think a crowd and a hashtag make you untouchable? Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. You should leave, officer. There are federal agents outside. He took another step forward. They're busy with the riot your little video caused. His words dripped with mockery. All those people screaming my name, painting me as some monster. You think you did something brave? You ruined lives. Her voice shook but didn't break. You ruined one first. She pointed to Ethan, whose wide eyes reflected the faint glow from the street. You broke a boy's wrist for being deaf and black. For not reacting fast enough to your shouting. Reed stopped in the middle of the room, breathing hard. For a moment, lightning lit his face, pale, drawn, haunted. You don't understand what it's like out there, he said, softer now. Every day, we get calls about robberies, assaults, suspects. You learn to act first or you don't come home. Maya took a slow step closer. You're right, I don't understand that kind of fear. But you should have understood his. Reed's jaw tightened. The memory of the laughter, the way it echoed across the internet, seemed to flicker behind his eyes. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he muttered. It just happened fast. Accidents don't come with mockery, Maya replied. That laughter, that wasn't fear. That was cruelty. A long silence hung between them. Outside, the storm thickened. Distant sirens wailed again, closer this time, echoing off the houses. Then Ethan stepped forward. He moved slowly, still clutching his sister's hand, his casted wrist hanging heavy at his side. He signed something small, deliberate. His hand shook with pain, but he finished the movement. Reed frowned. What's he saying? Maya's throat tightened. He said, "Do you hear me now?" Reed stared at the boy, at the bruises, the broken bone, the silent strength standing in front of him. Something cracked in his expression, the first fissure in a wall built from years of power and fear. He dropped his gaze to the floor. "I thought..." He was reaching for something, he whispered. "It was dark. My training said..." "Your training didn't tell you to laugh." He flinched. The words hit harder than she expected. He turned toward the door as flashing blue lights spilled down the street again. Federal agents were returning, their beams cutting through the rain. Reed took a step back. "I'll answer for it," he said, his voice shaking. "I've already been suspended. Internal Affairs called this afternoon. The department's washing their hands of me. I'll lose everything." "Maybe that's justice," Maya said quietly. He nodded, though his eyes glistened. "Maybe it is." He reached into his jacket slowly, no weapon this time, and pulled out his badge. "I'm done hiding behind this," he said, placing it gently on the table. "You wanted the truth. You've got it." Outside, Jensen's voice called through the broken door. "Maya, it's safe now." Reed turned toward the sound, blinking against the rain. He didn't move right away. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "I used to believe the badge made me good. Maybe it just kept me from looking too close." Maya didn't answer. Some truths needed silence. 2 agents entered, flashlights sweeping across the room. Reed raised his hands without a word. Jensen stepped forward, took his arm gently, and read him his rights. There was no resistance, no performance, only the quiet collapse of a man finally facing himself. As they led him out into the storm, Reed glanced back once. His eyes met Ethan's, and for the briefest moment, there was something close to apology, not enough to undo the pain, but enough to prove he had finally seen the human being standing in front of him. When the door closed behind them, Maya felt the air in the room shift. The tension drained, leaving only exhaustion and the faint sound of Ethan's shaky breathing. She pulled him close. "It's over," she whispered. "You did it. You made them listen." Days passed, and the video's reach spread beyond anything Maya imagined. The Department of Justice announced federal charges for civil rights violations. The chief resigned. Reed's name appeared in headlines, not as a decorated officer, but as the face of a system forced to confront its own reflection. At the same time, communities across the country began holding new police training programs on interacting with deaf and disabled citizens. Sign language classes filled overnight. Schools started awareness campaigns. The story of one silent boy had started an avalanche. 2 months later, Maya and Ethan stood at the front of a rally in Washington, surrounded by hundreds of deaf advocates and allies. Ethan wore a new set of hearing aids, smaller and sleeker, paid for by donations from strangers who had seen themselves in his struggle. When he stepped to the microphone, he didn't speak. He signed. Maya translated beside him, her voice steady as he moved his hands in deliberate rhythm. "My silence was never defiance. My quiet didn't mean consent. Justice means being seen even when you cannot speak." The crowd erupted. Deaf and hearing voices blended into a wave of applause that rolled down the Capitol steps. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But for once, Ethan didn't shrink from the noise. He smiled. Maya looked out over the sea of hands waving the sign for listen. Her heart swelled with a mix of pride and grief and hard-earned peace. She leaned close to the microphone. This started because one man refused to see, and one sister refused to stay silent. If you've ever been told your pain is invisible, this is your proof that the world can change. As the cheers rose again, Maya turned to Ethan. He was looking up, tears on his cheeks, signing something small that only she could see. "Thank you for hearing me." She smiled. "Boys." Later that night, the story closed the national news. They replayed Ethan's signing, Maya's words, and a still image of Reed being escorted into court. He looked smaller than before, not in stature, but in certainty. The anchor's voice said he had accepted a plea deal and would testify against his superiors for systemic misconduct. He had agreed to mandatory community service in deaf outreach programs. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. As the credits rolled, the reporter ended with the line that made millions pause. Sometimes justice doesn't roar, it signs. And in a small living room miles away, Maya closed her laptop, leaned back against the couch, and finally allowed herself to breathe. Ethan lay beside her, asleep again, safe. Outside, the street was quiet, not the silence of fear, but of peace earned. She whispered softly, "They heard you, baby brother." The camera would fade here, but if this were a story on your screen, you'd see Maya glance toward you, her eyes steady, her voice clear. "This story began with one act of cruelty," she would say, "but it ends with a promise that every voice, even a silent one, deserves to be heard." So if you believe that, share this story. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and never forget, listening can save lives. Subscribe for the next story, because tomorrow, another voice needs to be heard.